Welcome back to Mish Mash Men podcast, or M Cubed. Today, you're here with me, the primary superhero in this duo, Dustin Labar.
That's fair, but that's all you get.
Yeah. And then to my left, my direct left, is Mr. Adam Mauser.
How do you do?
So we had some fun outdoor podcasts, which I actually enjoyed. And
It was good.
And watching them back, it was like a little different. We kind of looked cool.
Kind of.
Yeah,
I have a hard time with that.
I mean, we looked kind of cool, I thought.
I looked, I always look uncomfortable and dorkish.
Well, those chairs were uncomfortable, so that was a problem.
Yeah.
But it was still fun to do something a little different.
And the clothing wasn't necessarily optimal for that temperature.
Yeah, right.
The height of those stools in relation to the table, it was just.
It was it was an interesting. It was an interesting setup, but we got it done.
We got it done. We had
done.
great episodes, great feedback.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
So, we'd like to thank you guys, the listeners, for tuning in again. Today we're going to have a little bit of open conversation about a couple things. I'm going to ask Adam what he knows about a few things, and then we'll probably go off and talk about these things directly. So, do you have anything to add before we get rolling?
No, I'm happy to be here.
Okay.
Let's roll.
I'm also happy to be here.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm bringing this up is because there is a docudrama on Netflix. So it's based on real events, but it's with actors. Like the one actor is who's the guy from he's Ferris Bueller.
Matthew Broderick?
Matthew Broderick.
Okay.
Yes, he's playing one of the Sacklers in the Richard Sackler.
Okay, so it is a drama.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
docudrama. Got it.
So it's so basically, for those of you that don't know, the Sackler family are the ones that invented or created OxyContin.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty sweet drug if you ask some people.
I've had to take that.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So maybe you'll know. You'll kind of understand what's going on here. So basically what kind of sparked my interest to talk about it is the Sackler family, and we can look this up before we go. Maybe we can look it up on our phones. Made a boatload of money off OxyContin. And they were like, the sales reps and everybody, they were basically like, it's not addictive, or way less addictive than oxycodone or all these other things. And so they were handing these out there to everybody. They're like, hey, you should take these. They're not addictive. But they knew it was basically the same thing. It's like morphine and like heroin, basically, mixed together.
It's an opioid-based drug, right?
Yes, correct. So they knew very well that it was going to be addictive, and they were just like, it's not, though. So they handed it out, and then...
Wait, so it's more than this. This family owned a pharmaceutical company?
Yeah, it's Purdue Pharma.
Purdue Pharma.
Purdue Pharma.
Okay.
So they were... and Richard Sackler, his uncle, started Purdue, and he was the guy that started Valium, that was handing it out to, like, remember it was like the big drug that like gave the housewives that were like depressed?
Valium?
Valium.
The sedative?
Yes. It's the same thing there. He just like figured out a drug that you could like make a ton of money off of, and they don't really prescribe that anymore, I don't think.
I don't know.
I don't think
I
they
have no
do.
idea.
So anyway, this guy, they portray him as a pretty bad dude, and it seems like he is a pretty bad dude. So anyway, fast forward, link to a bunch of deaths, OxyContin, like overdoses and addiction-based deaths. And so they agreed to a settlement to pay $6 billion, which is a billion with a B.
Yeah.
And then so everybody was like, oh, they're going to get, not get away with it, but their net worth was something like $20 to $40 billion. So really what they were going to do is over 20 years pay off that $6 billion on their interest. Like, so it wasn't going to bankrupt them. They were basically going to be able to keep living their lives. Like, it was a slap on the wrist, essentially.
Okay, yeah.
To them. So right before that was about to go through, the Supreme Court put a stop to it. They said, no, we're not sure about this. You guys, we're going to have to look into it a little bit more. More so that the financial punishment is going to be far larger than anybody anticipated.
So the Supreme Court, I mean, it's not like they actively go out and pursue.
Right. Somebody
like, they're not investigators. So that case that was brought to them was basically a class action lawsuit, or was it like wait, because the Supreme Court wouldn't rule on that, would they? Would they rule on like states suing?
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess I don't know the exact details of that,
Okay.
but I know that there was probably like some some what do you call it? Appeals to the verdict.
Yeah.
Probably went all the way.
It goes up through the appeals process.
But anyway, they did put a stop to it.
Yeah.
And so now we're not sure what's going to happen. And then this coincides with the fact that this docudrama came out.
Right.
So it's kind of like it's all working out together. So so they created OxyContin, very harmful drug. So my first question is going to be, should they bankrupt these people? Like
who's they?
Should whoever rules on it finally and brings down the penalty, should it be something that totally bankrupts the family?
I don't know if I care whether or not someone gets bankrupted if there's some sort of lawsuit and there's some kind of payout. Mm-hmm. It's almost immaterial to me because to me the question is, because this isn't a legal question where they broke the law, right? This is more of like a suit where they're getting fined by states, or are they getting sued for like like this class action where people are like for damages?
Yeah, I believe it's a class action lawsuit for damages.
So I personally
don't care.
I don't care if a family, because if the jury or the grand jury or the judges or whatever the format is, if the law and the judicial system at the end say, hey, we think you should be paying this fine or whatever it is, so be it. It doesn't bother me at all.
So you don't care either way.
No,
you don't care either way.
No, as long as truth reigns.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess that you're having to put a part of the weird thing is that you have to put a price on the lives that were lost.
Right.
Which is the hard thing to do. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like so I'm sure those people think, the people that were affected by it directly probably think that they should be bankrupt forever, because they essentially ruined somebody's life, multiple people's lives, thousands of people's lives because of the drug.
But to be fair though, if they did something nefarious, the money part of it's almost immaterial to me.
Yeah.
Where if they did something and it was shady, like as you were describing it, I'm sure in the docudrama, this is the trouble with entertainment as a form of informing a legal aspect, right? Mm-hmm. A legal episode. So now a particular picture gets painted, and it may or may not be all true.
Yeah.
And then so you have Matthew Broderick playing the bad guy, and
right.
It's clear he's the bad guy. So it's a classic case. We talked about propaganda before, but in my mind, if they did something that's illegal, immoral, or unethical, then pay the fine, go to jail.
Yeah,
they get everything that they deserve if they were being shady. That's right, just if it was illegal.
Yeah, the reality is they knew that it was addictive.
Yeah.
And more addictive. They knew it was basically heroin.
They should get it.
And then they were still, they were literally telling people like it's not.
It's not. That's shady. It's not, that is so shady.
So, I think that they should be punished to
the full extent.
To whatever the full extent is. I mean, it's not cool that they're like probably chilling on their yachts and being like.
That's sickening, isn't it?
You know what I mean? Like they're like, how'd you get this money? It's like, some weird stuff.
And let me add that. So you, sorry.
You just got excited.
I did. I was getting fired up.
Yeah, I saw it.
So you painted an interesting picture there. It's probably not far. So they're chilling on their yachts.
Yeah.
In the meantime, the people that got addicted to these drugs,
right?
They're people that obviously there was a reason why they got prescribed these drugs. They had some kind of surgery.
Yes.
And most people, the middle class is huge. It's dwindling in this nation, unfortunately.
Right.
But it's huge. So most people that are affected are probably folks like you and me.
For sure.
That like I have this outpatient surgery, and now I have to take this drug, and now one thing leads to another. I get addicted to it, even though I was told it was not addictive.
Right.
And now my life is altered because of that, and I'm struggling. And now I can paint this picture of a guy sitting on his yacht, and I'm sure that was a scene in there.
Yeah, I didn't know it wasn't. Okay. I haven't been that far into it yet, but that's not a scene. But that's what I picture, like when these. Like
smoking big cigars.
Exactly. It's like a fat guy with no shirt on, and his swim trunks are pulled up way past his belly button, and he's laughing about how much money. You know what I mean?
Lighting a cigar with $100 bill.
Yeah, it's like that guy, and that's what I think is happening. I don't know if it is, but they have a mansion, and they're just like,
right.
When you're worth, $20 billion or $40 billion is so hard to even imagine how much money that is. But the fact that they're like, yeah, I'll just pay 6. Like they just agreed to it. Like, yeah, we'll pay $6 billion because we, yeah, we screwed up a little bit, but you still have so much money. Like you still have enough money. That's generational wealth still.
Yeah.
You gave away $6 billion and you still have enough money for your great grandchildren to live off of, which is pretty crazy. So it also brings me into like what I think about when I think about that is I think we can agree that some drugs have been made that work. That are like
ivermectin. That's a good one.
Ivermectin. I knew you were going to say that. When I thought about saying this, I was like, I know one that Adam's going to say for sure.
Hydroxychloroquine.
There are some drugs that serve a purpose and they actually do work.
Yeah.
But it really boils down to they're ultimately not trying to help people. They're trying to make the most amount of money on a potential problem, right?
Oh, yeah. I've heard RFK Jr. talk about that quite a bit.
Yeah.
Like the advertising. We're the only nation, I think.
New Zealand allows it a little bit.
New Zealand does. Okay. So,
but it's far more, we're talking about promoting on television or advertising on television.
Not to doctors, but like it's
to us.
To us.
It's so weird. I never, we grew up around it or, we've grown with the thing, but it's so weird to think that just you and me could see a medicine on television and they're like, ask your doctor. And we walk in and be like, hey man, I think I got some of this stuff.
That it just doesn't make any sense to me.
It's wild. I never thought about it before until recently when all like RFK came out and all this stuff.
It would hit me up every once in a while because I'm like, why are they advertising to us? Well, I know the answer why. I'm asking rhetorically to myself. Like they're advertising to us for a reason. And the reason is they're making money off of this advertising. They don't advertise. You don't spend millions of dollars on ads. Because you're just being a nice guy.
I mean, it's genius in terms of the fact that, originally you had to market to a doctor and then the doctor had a handful of drugs to choose from and then give you the one that he thought was best. Well, now you're just telling the people what to go take.
Right.
And then you're just asking your
doctor. They can badger.
Yeah. And they can ask their doctor, be like, well, I saw online if you're depressed that you can take this. And then, the only side effects are violent diarrhea and,
and death.
Yeah. And death, but that's it.
And it shows people like playing volleyball and having a good old time.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's so funny. I mean, it's like a joke when you read them, like the side effects and you're like, well, that sounds way worse than I would rather be a little bit depressed than have violent diarrhea, like violent uncontrolled diarrhea. That would depress me. Way more than the depression.
Well, not only that, but now you're guaranteed out of that litany of side effects that you're going to have, one of those at least, you're going to want to take a drug for that.
Yeah.
And it just multiplies. It's just like this. Well, it's more than that. It's an exponential thing of like these health effects from these pharmaceuticals and other drugs and interventions that you got to take. It's not a good scene.
The medical. So I think the medical industry and big pharma are two different things, but they're tied together. So like, I don't know if it was for you, but me and my boss talked about this recently. Like my mom, when she went to the doctor, if he's just said whatever, like she wouldn't question it. It was just like she was like, oh, that's my doctor.
Right. Like
wouldn't question any medicine, wouldn't question anything, and just because it's like we talked about it, it's I forget now. What the heck am I talking about? Like trust me, I'm a pro kind of thing. It was one of the confirmation biases.
Oh, appeal to authority.
Appeal to authority.
Yeah.
So like she would never question anything.
Yeah.
Like it's just like it was like an older generation thing. It's like, oh, my doctor told me to, take this, and I'm just gonna do it. I don't know if that's something that you experience, but if
so, yeah. You know me. I'm kind of an inquisitive guy, and
sure.
I like to ask questions. Well, one of our children had a medical problem right after she was born, and so I won't go into details. It's really immaterial, and she's fine now. She's okay. There was some significant medical intervention in between, though.
Yeah.
So the attending physician, when we're having these problems, is explaining it to us. He's doing the bedside manner doctor speech to us, Jennifer, who just delivered, and me. And he's and I'm asking like legitimate questions, like, well, how do you know? Can you explain that to me a little bit more in depth? Because we're getting ready to make decisions that are not insignificant.
Right.
And then this is human nature. If you start getting questioned, we're all on a spectrum of some people just don't mind at all getting questioned.
Yeah.
And some people, as soon as you have a questioning look, they start getting defensive.
Sure. Yeah.
And he was somewhere in that spectrum.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a jerk about it, but then he started doing the doctor talk.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean by the doctor talk.
Yeah.
And most of you know what I mean by the doctor talk. He starts using the Latin terms.
Right.
And it's not like I don't understand any of them.
Yeah.
So I understand what he's doing, but I understand exactly really what he's trying to do, which is like, I am a medical doctor. I've had many, many years of medical training, and you don't. Right. And so you're going to have to listen to me.
Right.
And I really didn't appreciate that.
Sure.
I don't like being talked down to. And and it was at a bad time because, of course, I didn't bite his head off or anything like that, but I just didn't appreciate it. I had a bad taste in my mouth from that one doctor.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that he did it wrong.
Yeah.
But I've seen it before, and we're all susceptible to this. No one really loves being questioned. There's probably a very small percentage. But
also, it's being a doctor or a medical professional, you have a high level of like confidence in yourself. Typically. So like doctors like
they should.
So I would definitely want a surgeon or a doctor that's very confident.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I don't know if that's going to work, to be honest with you. What do you think, man? Yeah. Where should I cut first? But you want them to be confident, but you still want them to be able to be relatable to you. So that you have it, because it is like whether it's your child or you still have, you want to be informed.
Believe it or not, we all have decisions on what happens to us medically, unlike what some people think.
Yes, correct. Yeah, you don't have to do, to touch on that, like people are shocked when, Laura's a medical professional. And so I know some stuff from her, and I have a little bit of training, but when a surgeon, like I'll just use like knee surgery as an example, be like, oh, you need knee surgery. Yeah. And then maybe me or Laura to a friend will be like, you should go get a second opinion. It's like, well, why? Why this? Well, you understand that surgeons make money when they do surgery.
Right.
I'm not saying that maybe the surgery is totally wrong. I'm just saying maybe there's another avenue.
Right.
Like for instance, maybe you can do some rehabilitation, and then if it doesn't get better, you can do surgery. But people are, it's almost like embarrassing. They're like, well, I don't want to go ask for a second opinion because I talked to this guy. It's like, no, you have the final say in your health. If you don't want to get surgery, you do not have to get surgery.
And they should welcome that.
Who, surgeons?
Yeah, they should welcome, like, oh, you should get another opinion.
100%. Yes, 100%. They should, if they're your caregiver or your anything that has to do with your plan of care, they should want the best outcome for you. So typically, not getting cut on, if you can fix it without getting surgery, is the best option.
Right.
It may be a longer option, but it's the better option, in my opinion.
I 1,000% agree.
1,000,000%. I'm gonna start saying 1,000,000 now. I feel like
are we ready for that?
I feel like I was gonna step up to 100,000%, but I felt like that was too long.
It is too long.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
1,000,000%.
100,000%.
I kind of like that.
What'll bother Abby the intern more, 100,000% or 1,000,000%?
Probably 1 million.
1,000,000%.
1,000,000%.
So. Yeah, so like it's weird. It's a weird thing because you want to have good doctors and you want to have medicine that can. We're in an age where like medicine's like they can do some crazy things, but like it's so money driven that these people like, and then if you really listen to RFK talk about some of the stuff, you're like blown away that people are that evil. Like in my opinion, it's evil. Like, hey, we expected people to take this medicine or this vaccine, and they're just not interested in it. And then somebody being like, well, we'll just put it on the scheduled vaccines for kids.
Right.
Just so you guys can use it. Cause you guys give us so much money. Because when you look at the bubble chart of like major corporations, it's always these big pharma companies. Yeah. And it's like, they own Pepsi. Why do they own Pepsi?
Right.
What do they have to do with Pepsi?
Well, like you said this earlier, and I was going to tee off on it. They don't have you said it with respect to the surgeon, but then also earlier on, the pharmaceutical industry they make money selling pharmaceuticals.
Yes.
They don't make money. They're not really interested in your health.
Yeah. Correct. Yes.
And so I'm not saying that they're all evil.
Yeah.
And that if you take a pharmaceutical, then you are dumb. What I'm saying is, you have to ask yourself, why are they so interested in giving me this product?
Right.
Is it for my best interest or is it for their best interest?
Right.
Now, when it comes to like free market capitalism, usually it's two people. Like if you have something you want to sell and I happen to want to buy it, then we will meet at a point where the supply and demand meet, and the dollars get exchanged, or maybe a service or a computer. You're going to give me a computer if I do this thing for you, whatever it is. But like, you shouldn't make me take this computer.
Yes, correct.
Like, you're going to get this computer, Adam. You shouldn't make me take this. This pharmaceutical.
Right. You shouldn't. And it should be what you hope in like capitalism. What you hope is that things work in the reverse of the way that they're working. So like, if pharmaceutical company A is like, I think that I've cured cancer, but it's pretty expensive. It's $100,000. It's $100,000. Yeah. Well, pharmaceutical company B could be like, I also think I did it, but to get more sales than you, I'm going to undercut you just a little bit. It's going to help the customer and it's going to drive business to me. And then the same goes on for that. But instead they're just like, it's all like, I'm just going to sell it to the government or do whatever, and I'm going to make it the most amount of money. Like,
well, insurance
is a nightmare. Yeah. Insurance is an absolute. You know, I didn't even know this. They only recently started sharing like your bills, like what the insurance company pays, like what the actual cost of like things are. So people were just like, they were like, here's your bill for $500,000, and you're like, what's that? It's like all the stuff you got. Don't worry about it. Just, you know, you owe this on it.
You know how we ended up with the health insurance, especially tied to our job?
No, I don't, but I would love to hear it.
So check this out. Don't just take my word for it. Research this yourself. But the health insurance, the market always wins. No matter what anybody thinks, the market always wins. So there were wage caps during World War II. Okay. And because the market always wins, in other words, it will find a way for it to happen. So if I can't pay workers or executives or whatever it is, whatever population I'm working on, because World War II was going on. Remember, we're on the gold standard then. Yep. And fiat currency. In other words, you could only have as much money as you had gold. Right. And that's why there was hardly any inflation. And so they wage caps on how much they could pay people, because we had a war to fight and a war to pay for. Right. Or a couple wars. And so the market finds a way. So what's another way that I can entice the best employees to stay working for me? Well, I'm going to offer them insurance. Gotcha. Because hardly anybody had health insurance. Right. And very rarely did anybody need any health insurance, because you would just have that interchange with your doctor and pay them whatever. And then you also had like severe health type of insurance, but that's about it. Well, health insurance became this thing, and it's specifically tied to work, and it just grew and grew and grew and grew to the point where now you're a slave to your employer. That's right. Or employers, because of health insurance.
It's a huge marketing tip or tool in negotiations for like salary. Yeah. If you're like, my spouse has health insurance, so I'm covered. Right. They're like, oh crap. You know what I mean? Like,
so now I can get more dough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm going to get more of your money.
And I'm not going to get as much of a discount with my group buy, because this bozo doesn't need insurance, especially for a small firm.
It's wild how all this stuff works. It's freaking wild, man. Yeah. Like, listening to, I was mentioning it specifically about the hepatitis B vaccine. We talked about it briefly, and RFK talked about it. Yeah, RFK talked about it. So I have not fact checked this. This is RFK talking about this specific thing. So he said it was they originally created it to market it towards two specific types of people, one being prostitutes and the other being promiscuous homosexual males. Yeah. That was the two groups that they were like, we'll cure.
So they're probably the most susceptible population.
So they were like, okay, we'll promote to them. Well, so they spent all this money to get it, but it turned out those people didn't want to buy it. So they were like, we don't care.
Well, was it because they didn't want to buy it, or they needed a prescription, so they needed to see somebody admit that, like, I accept money for.
It's probably more of both. Like, probably like some of them were like, I'm not going to go. What do I, you know, they're living a certain lifestyle, so they're not going to go. They're probably not. Some of them probably aren't worried about it. I'm not worried about it. Some of them probably aren't worried about it.
It can't happen to me, because there's a lot of that.
And then some of them, you know, there's the ones that won't go get tested because they're not going to do it. There's the ones that can't afford it or don't have insurance
or embarrassed
or whatever it may be. Well, so this pharmaceutical company went to the FDA, and was like, hey, like, we spent like all this money on this and nobody's buying it. So they were like, well, we'll put it on the scheduled vaccine list for children. Which, when you first hear that, you're like, you're like, oh, that's false. That can't be true. It's got to be a lie, right? Like that's your first thought because that doesn't make any sense. Why would you just put it on the, and then RFK goes on to say, well, think about it. Why would you give a vaccine to a baby that there's really no chance that baby's going to get hepatitis B?
And there are risks associated with any pharmaceutical.
And then I thought about it and I was like, yeah, why would a baby? Because they were like, it's a sexually basically for all as long as the mother doesn't transmit to the baby during birth, but the mother is always tested for. That's one of the things that they're tested for before they give birth. So maybe if the baby was given, they would give it to him then, but it shouldn't be scheduled because that baby is just a baby. It's not just going to randomly get it. And after he said that, I was like, well, that makes a lot of freaking sense. But there's just so much money floating around there, and like they can pay all these politicians. I guess that's what the most bothersome is. It's like they can pay these guys like whatever.
Yeah.
And then things just like it's like greasing the wheels. It's like you kind of get whatever you want. And these guys are the ones that yield the most, or some of the most, punching power in terms of like getting things passed that make their life easier, which is crazy.
It's scary, is what it is. And why do you think it is that we've remained largely ignorant to this? Because what you're describing isn't really. It's not like this isn't the first. We're not the first two to discover this or talk about it. Other people have talked about it. So the casual listener might hear us and say, they're just making that up.
Sure.
Well, go research it yourself.
Yeah.
Because we could be wrong.
Could be.
Or people are like, but is it that big of a deal?
Yeah.
And then there's the other folks like, that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So why have we been lulled into this where we just like accept what people tell us all the time?
Well, I think it's the status quo. Like you just get so like you don't even question things because it's just been the norm. Like you just figure out the norm. So probably part of it is like the access to information now. Is that you can easily access, some things are probably not easily, but you can access information a lot easier. But I never would have thought to, one of the, basically the slanders they would say during the COVID thing was like, these people are anti-vax in general. So they'd be like, they're against all of it. Even if they weren't necessarily against all of it, they were just against one. Mm-hmm. And so that was like, people were like, don't call me that. I've vaccinated my children. And even me, I was like, yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you vaccinate your kids for all these terrible things. And you hear somebody like, I'm not saying everything RFK says is true, but it definitely makes you think a little bit. It at least makes you like think about it, be like, could that be true? Is this some nonsense that they've gotten away with for so long that it just become the status quo that people don't even question it, right? I mean, there's not even a question about it.
Let me tell you this. Clear his throat. I used to think that RFK Jr. was an absolute loon. Like I would hear his stuff on anti-vax or on the vaccines in general years ago. Yeah. Like let's just say 5 years ago.
Right.
I thought he was just an absolute nut job. He's a wacko environmentalist.
Sure.
And now he's got this whole jihad against vaccines. Mm-hmm. I wasn't a huge fan of vaccines. We for a lot of our kids we spaced out a lot of the vaccines because we knew there were health problems, and we knew since like the 1980s they were really increasing the schedule to the volume of vaccines. So we tried to temper it a bit, but we still thought that they were legitimate.
Sure, of course.
Because the medical, I won't say authority, the medical establishment as a whole, pharmaceutical industry and medical industry, and I really think, I kind of winced when he said that, they're two separate camps. I think they're the same camp. I think they're the same camp.
I'll clear it up when you go ahead.
They fund a lot of the medical schools. But that's neither here nor there. And then the past couple of years, I'm like, okay. And then I heard, it's not like I was like, well, quick, let me hear what RFK Jr. has to say. But then I started listening to what he had to say because he's come out of the, out into the limelight, as it were, in the past year or so. And I'm like, okay, I used to really think that guy was just a complete nut job and just off his rocker. And now I'm like, he might be. Yeah. There's a lot of interests that are shared on the pharmaceutical industry that kind of converge to a single point. And now I'm like, maybe there is something.
Yeah,
there.
maybe it's not as crazy as I thought it was.
Right.
I mean, that's the way, like, I don't want to say this guy's name because some people are going to be, but there's a major conspiracy theorist that a lot of people do not like, and he's gotten some bad flack recently, or in general. And a lot of the stuff he says to me is crazy, and some of it has been proven to be true. But some of the stuff he says has been 100% accurate.
Yeah.
So you can't necessarily say that he's all bad, because there's some stuff, even, you could say anything like Bohemian Grove. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
I mean, he was like, this place exists. And everybody was like, that sounds stupid. And then he was like, hey, I'm here at Bohemian Grove. There's people right there. And everybody's like, turn that camera
And they're
off.
worshiping an owl.
Yeah, they're worshiping Oleg, the owl god.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like, I totally believe, and somebody said this, and I thought it was 100% correct. When you live in the conspiracy theory hole, you can only see, like, you're so inundated with it that you can only see conspiracy theories, and it probably takes your life over. And it's probably like a pretty sad place to live, because you probably do know a lot of things that you're trying to tell people are definitely true, and you can't get it through to them until something like you show up at the place that you're saying existed. Or like he was saying about Epstein's Island like 20 years ago.
Right.
And people were like, that doesn't sound like a
that sounds
exist.
Crazy. Like, why would all those celebrities fly there and have...
So exactly. So, I mean, you have to at least take some of this stuff, like, even if you don't necessarily agree with like RFK or the stuff that he's saying, like, you should listen to it at least to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, don't automatically discount.
Yeah, don't just say no, this guy's crazy, I'm not going to listen to anything he says. He could be wrong about some things, but it sure looks like some of the stuff that he was talking about sure was right.
Yeah.
And not everybody's right all the time, so it's fair, but don't just be like, this guy's a nut, and he's like, his thing he said on his executive order, if he became president, is he is going to sign an executive order to make it illegal for pharmaceutical companies to advertise on television. I mean, they're going to kill him.
So I agree with the sentiment of that. I don't agree with the legality of it.
Meaning that he should go through other channels to make sure that happens?
The president has no authority to regulate. I don't think there should be an FCC. I don't think there should be any, the federal government should not have any say whatsoever about what's broadcast, period, end of story.
This is a freedom of speech thing.
This is a freedom of speech thing. But at any rate, I agree completely with the sentiment, though, that they should not be advertising. So how do you do that? Should we allow them to advertise to us? That's a good question. That's a good question from the libertarian, which I'm not I'm not politically aligned with libertarianism, but there's a lot of libertarian leanings that I have because I'm a quote-unquote classical liberal.
Yeah.
Look that up if you think automatically that I want to save the whales and stuff.
Yeah. I don't want to save the whales.
I hate the whales. They're delicious.
Worst, yeah.
Get my lamp oil from whales. But anyway, the president shouldn't be allowed to do that. But I completely get the sentiment that why are they advertising?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that they're able to do it because it's a free country. But do you think it's more like so? Did you ever see a pack of cigarettes in Canada?
I have.
So
I've spent many a day in Canada.
They have
Canada, I think is the way it's pronounced.
Canada, yeah, especially in the western side. They put pretty terrifying pictures on their cigarette cartons.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, they put they're like, you like cigarettes?
There's some lungs.
Yeah, they're like, do you like cigarettes? And you're like, yep. And they're like,
hey, these are raisins.
Here's some cancer lungs. And you're like, oh my God. So I mean, I don't know if it's like they certainly shouldn't. They have the right to do whatever free speech wise, but there should be a way to figure something out where they just can't I mean, if it's manipulate, it's propaganda.
It's absolutely propaganda.
Because they're like, look how happy that person is taking OxyContin.
Well, maybe we got to ask ourselves, why are they able to spend that much money on this?
Yeah.
On this advertising.
Yeah.
And how are they getting it? Like there is a reason why that's happening. Where do they get their money from?
Yeah.
And maybe look into it that way.
I think recently they got a lot of money from the government.
It sure looks that way.
Yeah.
So maybe the government should be funding our tax dollars rather, because the government doesn't really make any money.
Yeah.
We make money.
They just take it from us.
And they take it from us, about 50%.
It's a pretty sweet gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good work if you can get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty sweet. Like they're just like, yeah, you guys can play the lottery, but we get a bunch of it. And but you're like, why? Like, because we told you.
Yeah.
Because we said so.
Give me 50 cents of that dollar you just paid for that Powerball.
You're like, but it's a $1 billion. So you get $500 million. You're like, yeah, that's right. Exactly right. Yeah, you nailed it. Yep. But keep playing though, bud.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll win again.
34 billion.
Yep. So, I just thought that was going to be a fun thing to talk about. I'm sure we could spend multiple episodes getting into the weeds on this.
Oh yeah. Maybe we will.
But this was a kind of a fun introductory to, I do like, and maybe we can get some feedback. I do like the topic open conversation format.
Oh yeah.
That we have. So, maybe we can do this more often about topical things, or they don't have to be topical. mean, this is.
I think that's where we're going to go. That's my take on it.
Yeah.
But we'd enjoy to hear your feedback.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the feedback.
The casual listener and the subscriber.
Or we call them cash listeners.
Yeah.
Cash.
We do enjoy the feedback. Some of you are more vocal than others, but legit, I enjoy every bit of it. I just had an old buddy that I knew in the Army years ago. Cap. I'll call him Cap. Good dude. And he sent me just out of the blue, sends me this message. Hey, I'm a regular listener to Mish Mash Men. Love the podcast. Love what you're doing. And that is good to hear.
Thanks, Cap.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Was he a lieutenant?
No, he was, so a long time ago, I was in the old guard.
Yeah.
That's 3rd U.S. Infantry, the old guard, funerals in Arlington, that sort of thing. And I was a squad leader.
Yeah.
So I was the full honor casket team leader. Funerals on top of the caisson. You put the body on the caisson. Yeah. And he was my pole man.
Oh.
So he's a big dude, strong.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm pretty ashamed of my joke now because I thought you called him Cap and he was a captain.
Oh, no.
And that's why I was like, is he a lieutenant?
No, Cap was short for his last name, and I won't use his last name.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that would have been a good joke if he had been a captain.
Like Captain America?
Yeah, exactly.
Or Captain Crunch?
Yeah, Captain Crunch. All right, well, this has been fun. That I enjoyed the conversation, and we will dig into this in the future.
I'm sure we will.
But until next time, guys, this has been Mish Mash Men. Have a good one.
See ya.